Congressman Kinzinger back with us today, serves as a pilot also in the Air National Guard. And sir, welcome back to America's Newsroom.
Thank you.
How are you now framing the story based on the new information we have thus far today?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, I think Germany, I think Europe at large made a mistake when they opened the floodgates. I mean, this idea, Germany has this case, and they've had it for a long time, of kind of post-World War II guilt. It was a well-earned case of that, obviously. But I think in part of that, they said, let's open the floodgates, let's look welcoming. And it's not just what it does. There's a massive culture clash right now that's going on in Germany and in Europe at large. But the other thing it did was it drained the Middle East of the very people we're going to need to resecure the future of the Middle East. So, look, I think it was a mistake for Europe to do what they did. But what this country, Western world, what the whole world needs right now is what I call a Churchill in the street moment, where he walks and says, we're not going to be shaken. A George W. Bush moment where he says, you know, you can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but you can't shake the foundation of American resolve. And for the last 8 years, we've been licking our wounds and retreating and thinking somehow that the Russians are, you know, our competitor, or thinking that, you know, terrorism can defeat us or make us retreat. This is a huge opportunity for President-elect Trump to come out and have that George W. Bush or Churchill moment, and I sure hope he does it.
Well, Europe has really, we've taken our own hits here at home, but Europe has really had a sweeping change if you look over the past 2 years. And look at these numbers, too. Top 5 countries seeking asylum in the EU. Number 1, Syria, clearing away. 87,000 over the past calendar year. Afghanistan, 62,000, right down the line. Asylum seekers in Germany, over that same period of time, almost 800,000. Now, what do? Do they change course? There's an election coming up next year. As I mentioned, she's under an awful lot of pressure. How do they reassure their own people that the government has their interest at heart?
I mean, that's a question for her. You know, I think one of the problems and one of the things that terrorists are trying to do, and I think they're doing successfully, is they're making all of us turn our knives on each other now and accuse and point and everything. And from a political perspective, people that allowed this, like Angela Merkel, the Germans are going to have to decide if that's the policy they want going forward. But as a world, as a Western world, as the broader world, we're going to have to come together and say we need to have these political discussions and make political changes as needed. But we've got to make sure we turn our knives against ISIS, against the terrorists, against the people that think they can push us around. And up to this point, and I put a lot of this blame on President Obama, he's never talked about the reason to take the fight in Afghanistan. It took him a year to recognize the rising threat of He said that ISIS was a JV team, and eventually we see that now they have people spread all over the world, and we're caught flat-footed. Again, President-elect Trump has a huge opportunity, not just for himself, but for this country, for the world, and everybody's watching.
You said that twice now. What do you want him to say? What would you expect him to say? January 20 or January 21 after that?
Well, I think a lot of what he says as president-elect when it comes to terror has been good. I think when he's inaugurated, it has a different feeling. And I think he needs to talk about uniting the world that loves freedom, the need for freedom, the right that people have to freedom. I think he needs to talk about that we're going to unite and destroy this cancer. And frankly, that we will not be shaken. Again, like George W. Bush said, you can shatter steel, but you can't dent the steel of American resolve. It's that kind of talk that we need. And you know, this idea that we're going to be pushed around by Russia or the Chinese or anybody else. We're the United States of America, for goodness sakes. We are the world's leader. We're the greatest country that God has ever put on this earth. We will not be pushed around. And I think if he says something like that, not those exact words, he could be a fantastic leader in this counterterrorism.
Really strong commentary. I don't know how it's possible for this terrorist to get away. If he's driving this truck into a market that's crowded with people all over the place, it just defies logic how he can run away literally and escape the scene. I can't figure it out.
Yeah. I can't either. That's a question for the Germans. You know, one of the things you have to be concerned about, and I'm not saying that this necessarily happened now, but I know what has happened in the past, is this over-concern about profiling. And so somebody looks and says, you know, this person looks Tunisian or Muslim, but I don't want to necessarily accuse them immediately of that because I'll look like I'm guilty of profiling. It's the same problem we have with why people sometimes don't alert law enforcement when they see something suspicious next door. You know, it's time we treat people fairly, understand that, you know, people that are obviously Muslim, there are many, many good people that are Muslim, but same time, we have to recognize we're fighting a real war, and it's a real war against people that want to kill innocent people. But we're the United States of America. We're not going to be pushed around.
ISIS has claimed him to be a soldier, but oftentimes these ISIS soldiers want to die for their doings, and this one apparently did not. And on behalf of Germany, let's hope they find him very soon. Adam Kinzinger, thank you from the state of Illinois today. Thank you for your time. 20 minutes past.
Merry Christmas, brother.
Thank you.